morning everyone, and welcome to this week's Paper Tray Ink Make It Monday video. I'm Lizzie Jones and I'll be your host for the week. I'm going to be making a color slider card in today's tutorial. Now I'm obviously not the first person to share this technique, but I thought it might be fun for people who aren't familiar with these kinds of cards, as well as just being a fun challenge. So let's get to it. Now I'm going to start today with a piece of white cardstock that I've already cut to 2.5 by 7 3/4, and I've scored it right along the center there. I'm going to use this rectangle die from the noted scalloped A2 die collection to cut a frame. So I've secured it with a piece of post-it tape, and I'm just going to run the front half of the panel through my die cut machine, just to avoid scarring up the area that I'm going to be coloring on later. Make sure I have a nice smooth surface. So I'm going to set that aside for a moment, and now I'm going to cut a piece of white cardstock with the 1/2 and 1/2 die. This is the rounded end to the die. I'm going to be using this as my pull tab. So I'm going to run the whole thing through my die cut machine. There we go. Get this stuff out of the way. And now I need to cut a slot there at the scored area for this pull tab to be able to slide through. So I'm going to use this pencil to mark on the back of the panel, or the framed piece. I'm going to mark there along the score line with that pencil, and I'm going to cut 2 parallel lines exactly stopping at those marks. I don't want to go beyond that because then the slot gets a little wide and your tab wiggles around. So I'm going to cut 1 line and then cut another right next to it, really super close to it, just because I find that having a little bit of space makes the pull tab slide a little more easily. I'm going to just nick the edges here, and I'll have my sliding slot all put together. Pull out that little sliver of paper. It's really, really narrow. You don't want too much space. And I'm going to test it. And it seems to work well. Now I've folded that frame piece along the score line, and I'm just tracing the outline of the window onto the back panel. I like having a reference on that back panel where I'm doing my stamping. And so I'm going to be using the Memento ink, Tuxedo Black, and the geranium stamp from the Stemmed Statements stamp set. And I'm using the Memento because I'm going to be using Copics. So I don't want them to bleed, and this is one of the best inks for that. So use whatever ink is most appropriate for the coloring medium that you plan to use. There we go. So now it's time to do the window. So there is a piece of acetate. It might be kind of hard to see, but it is right there on top of the flowers. And I've secured it with a couple of strips of post-it tape. And I'm going to be using black StazOn, jet black StazOn for this. It's a solvent ink, so it will dry on the acetate. Other types of inks don't dry on the slick surface, so just be aware of that. It's also a really good idea to check your StazOn before you stamp and make sure that it's well inked. Otherwise, you may have to stamp a couple of pieces of acetate to get a decent image, and you can take my word on this. So now it's time to adhere your acetate to the underside of the frame. You could wait to do this until after you color, but I like to live dangerously. So I'm using 1/8 inch score tape, and I'm adhering this to the underside of each side of the frame. And once I've got all the edges covered, I'm going to remove the protective backing, and then um, once all of that is done, I'm going to place the acetate over top of the flower that's stamped there on the cardstock and make sure they're nicely aligned. When I'm happy with the alignment, let's see, I will, there we go. I'm going to flip it down and just press all around the edges. And then I'm all set. So now it's coloring time. I'm going to leave all of the footage of me coloring in here because I know some of you really like to see that. I am by no means a master colorer, but it is fun to play with markers once in a while, so I decided to give that a spin today. Watercolor would be great for this technique. Colored pencils, if you prefer those, would be really great for this technique. Just choose a favorite medium and give it a try. The idea here is to incorporate as much bright color as possible. I know I'm going to leave my card front fairly simple, and my frame is already white, so when the recipient pulls up that pull tab, it's really going to make all those colors pop. That's going to be the star of the card. When they, pull up that tab, and then there's just a fun surprise. Plus, I love interactive cards. I think they're really fun for people, especially kids, just because it's not just cardstock. There's something you can do with it. It's fun. It's neat. It's interesting. And I think cards like this, people they wonder how you did it, and it's sort of a fun conversation too. So, who doesn't love that? Everybody loves surprises, right? It's a brightly colored surprise. Who can't get down with a brightly colored surprise? I'm just adding a little bit of shading in here. Like I said, I'm no master colorer, but I do want to add some depth. Okay, so now it's time to trim down that pull tab. So I'm going to place the pull tab into the slot there and just sort of line everything up, make sure it's nice and straight. And I'm going to use a pencil to mark where the bottom of the frame is. Now I'm actually going to cut about 1/4 of an inch above that because I want to make sure that I have enough room for my slider track for the bumper at the bottom. So I'm giving myself about 1/4 of an inch of buffer there. Now I'm using the coasters that Paper Tray sells. I'm using those, and I've cut them into 1/4 inch strips for my track. And I do get a little off frame here, I apologize. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down the track. So I'm trimming down the coaster pieces, the sides, the longer sides to fit. And then I'm going to use that same 1/8 inch score tape, and I'm going to apply it to the coaster. And then I'm going to peel off the backing, and I'm going to adhere that coaster strip to the outer edge, just along the, stay with me, along the inside of the outer edge of the bottom portion. So it's there along the sides of the colored flowers. and I'm doing the same thing with both sides. You don't want it to be off the edge, but you want it to be just inside. And now that additional strip, I'm cutting a piece, the stopper piece for the bottom of the pull tab. So I just laid it against the tracks and made sure that it was the right width. It would slide well, and then I adhered it to the back of the pull tab. And that last little piece is going to snuggle right in there between the two bottom tracks. It's the bottom bumper. And there's all the pieces. Now I'm going to use the pull here sentiment from Movers and Shakers Sentiments. And I'm just going to add that at the top of the pull tab using that same Memento ink. So there you can see the tab in place. So it's time to close up the slider. I've slid the pull tab through the slot so that the back of the slider, the back of the pull tab is facing the colored flower. And I'm going to use 1/8 inch score tape on the tracks to seal up the bottom and the sides. I'm peeling off that adhesive backing once again. And I started to fold it down and then realized it would be a lot easier to see what I was doing if I pulled the tab out of the way. So I just slid the tab out of the way, and it was perfectly easy to see what I was doing, make sure the stamping was lined up. So there is the slider itself. So here I have an A2 white card base scored at 5.5 inches, cut the long way, so 4 1/4 by 11. And I'm just going to cover it with a piece of Aqua Mist patterned paper. The stripe, I've cut it on a diagonal, and I'm just adhering it with my ATG. I use the 1/2 inch personally, and I'm just going to cover that card front. It covers edge to edge. Now I'm using foam tape on the back of my slider. It makes it easier to get your fingers around that pull tab if it's not adhered flat, straight down, flush with the card front. So you can get your fingers around that tab a little bit better if you've got foam tape under there. So I'm just going to press that little guy into place. Alright, and I'm going to add a sentiment banner. Now this banner I had done off camera just for the sake of time. So it is a double-ended banner cut from true black ink, or cardstock rather, I'm sorry. And I heat embossed it with the sentiment from Keep It Simple Thinking of You. And I'm just adding that flat because there's plenty of dimension going on already. So I'm just going to add that with more score tape. And there we go! Our little slider card. Isn't that cool? Such a fun surprise. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's Make It Monday video. I hope you'll try your hand at these fun interactive slider cards. Head over to Nicole Hetty's blog to link up your project for your chance to win a $25 gift certificate. This has been Lizzie Jones for Paper Tray Ink. Have a wonderful week, everyone.